Hello and welcome to another primetime episode. I'm absolutely delighted that this time we have somebody all the way from Phoenix, Arizona, a doctor, nutritionist, chef, baker. Nikita is somebody who dons many, many hats and is passionate about multiple things, and actually, for our purposes, serves as the perfect example of somebody who embodies not one but multiple passions and is pursuing all of them in a very, very serious way. She has a lot of fun with them. She's a content creator as well. So what we're going to do today is welcome Nikita onto the show and really try and understand from her when and how she discovered her passions and how she developed the courage to convert them into her full-time pursuits. So welcome to the show, Nikita.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy that we found a time that works for both of our, time differences from India to Phoenix here to find a time to talk about everything. So I'm excited to be here with you.
I'm so excited to hear that, and thank you so much for doing this. Thank you for making the time despite the time difference, as you said.
No
Great.
problem.
So, Nikita, let's get straight into it. I generally start by asking my guests to tell us a little bit about your growing up years. Where were they? If I understand correctly, you're obviously originally from India, from Assam. So, where were your growing up years? Where was school, etc.?
Of course. So let's jump right into it. So I was born in Guwahati, India, in Assam. So northeast part of India. We have a couple of tiny countries in that little corner piece of India. So I was born there and moved to the U.S. when I was 2 years old. My dad pursued his PhD and his master's here at Kansas State University. So that's where my childhood kind of started. I mean, born there, raised here in the U.S. So ever since I was little, I remember when I was like 3-4 years old in Kansas, I would always peer over my mom and look at what she's cooking. There's pictures of little me looking at cakes and that sort of thing. So my interest in cooking and developing recipes and being a health advocate has really started from a young age. So
Nikita, if I can quickly interrupt you here, I'm sorry.
No
We'll come
problem.
to the cooking and your influences in detail shortly. But
Okay,
before that, a couple of questions come to mind if you don't mind me jumping
of
in.
course.
Number one, so was your mum a homemaker in the US as well?
She was. So my mom pretty much, raised me and my brother from birth to where we are now. So my dad was the one who's going to full-time school, full-time, trying to provide for us. So it was just my mom and I for 4 years, dad being very busy at school until my brother came along as well 4 years after that. So, growing up, we had, very limited funds, of course. My dad was going to call it, pursuing his master's and PhD while my mom was a homemaker. So, of course, funds were very limited. So I know that we're going to discuss, cooking and developing all of that stuff later, but from a very early age, I learned how important it was to use the funds that you have and use those funds to develop, healthy recipes and that sort of thing.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Because in Assam, our diet is very simple: lentils or dal and pat. So rice and lentils. So that's it. So I mean, those two key ingredients are very affordable, relatively affordable. You can find them easily, but that's what we grew up on. Eggs, anda, koni, lentils, and rice. That was pretty much it. So that really got instilled with me from a very, very young age.
I want to also, sort of switch tracks a little bit very quickly because I think it's a very relevant question. So here you are suddenly in the United States, in Arizona, and you're going to school there. I don't want to go as far as to say racism, but was it difficult to adjust? Did you have problems at school vis-a-vis the rest of your classmates or anything like that you faced?
Personally, I have not experienced anything of that nature, thankfully. You know, there's a lot of people that do experience that here being in the US. But thankfully, the US is a very diverse country, and there are several people that are amongst our skin color, amongst our cultures, and various other cultures as well. So, the part of Phoenix that we're from, we have a very diverse group of people. We have several people that are from Assam, several people from different parts of India and part of the world as well. So I thankfully did not experience that. Along with that, when I was pursuing my master's and undergrad at Arizona State University, again, we had so many international students come from India pursuing their studies there. So I felt very at home as well. And the great thing is that, my parents have taught me such a deep part of our culture. We speak Assamese at home. I cook Assamese food at home as well. So it never felt like, I left my country or, left apart back in India. My grandparents and I are very close. So we are always discussing things. Grandma's always giving me recipes and ideas like that. So I was actually just in India this March, right before the peak of the pandemic hit. So I'm thankful that I was able to see them. So yeah, thankfully I didn't experience that part of things, but there are several people unfortunately here that do experience that.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, it's something that I had to ask you because I
Of
felt it
course.
was quite pertinent. Anyway, okay, great. So let's get back to the whole food thing. And at a very young age, and you brought up such an important point. So you by default learned how to ration the ration as well as finances, and become quite smart at managing that whole thing, and your interest in cooking develops. So where do you go from there? Because as I understand correctly now, you're sort of a specialist kidney nutritionist, and you're a chef and baker. So how do those two tracks develop as you grow older? Tell us a little bit.
Course. So let's jump a couple of years back. So, I had my childhood in or majority of my childhood in Kansas, and then we moved to Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona. So at a very young age, starting at the age of 13, I actually started co-hosting our live TV shows, and I did like recipe developing, created recipes, and then presented them live on TV. So
Okay.
that really kickstarted a lot of my media presentation, recipe developing, and love for sharing, the beauty of developing recipes at home at a young age and using ingredients that are easily affordable and easily able to find. So that was back when I was 13 years old. I'm not that age anymore. But that's what kind of kickstarted the media representation and, further kickstarted the love for cooking. So that was my teenage years. Once I got into, we got into high school, and then after high school, started college at Arizona State University. I pursued nutrition and dietetics. So that means that right now I'm actually a dietitian. There is a difference between a nutritionist and
Sure.
dietitian.
Sure.
So dietitians, we go through a complete residency program. So we have to complete about 1,500 hours of time at the hospitals, going through different types of, ICU, or we go through outpatient care, going through specialty, different specialties. And then after I pursued my undergrad at Arizona State University, I wanted to, of course, also pursue my master's. Did my master's, and at the same time received my RD credentials, so registered dietitian credentials. Had to take this, really difficult exam, my boards. So I just passed boards in February, and now I'm actually working as a kidney dietitian. So I work in dialysis with patients with end-stage renal disease or acute kidney infection and disease. So I'm really thankful for all my patients that I've learned a lot within this field. So, and then on the side, of course, doing recipe developing, baking, catering for different cakes and different events. So it's all kind of a melting pot of different interests and everything.
That's very, very fascinating. But tell me, you spoke a little bit in terms of your childhood and you're developing an natural interest in cooking and
Yeah.
baking, because of your mum and ostensibly because of your grandma. But where did the interest for studying dietetics come about?
So I've always known that I've wanted to, help people. I also wanted to pursue medicine and, the medical route. So I was really thankful to find a career field that really, mixed both of those things. In my position as a kidney dietitian or a renal dietitian, I get to explore the, clinical side of things, the medical side of things, of what their lab work looks like and how that develops in what foods that they should be consuming. There are certain types of foods that dialysis patients should not be consuming, so I help with that. But at the other side of things, I really knew that I wanted to still pursue food and how I can, take my passion for food and nutrition and how I can relate that to my career. And I'm really thankful for my parents because, since I had this career path and mindsets from such an early age, never did they have any or objections to it. They really let my brother and I just fly with free wings and never had any objections. So I'm really thankful for them.
Yeah, I mean, you said a very, very vital thing because oftentimes, despite parents' best intentions, there are conflicts, and that sort of gets in the way. Okay, now we all know that whether it's, I suppose, in the United States or I mean, I know for sure in terms of India, being any kind of a medical practitioner is a very hectic, demanding job and life and lifestyle. So, how do you balance your time now, being a full time kidney dietitian with your other pursuits, whether it's creating content for social media or your cooking and baking? How do you balance time and how do you manage it?
I might not have the perfect answer for it only because I'm still figuring that out because I just joined this position just barely in July.
Hmm.
So far what I found is that, as you just said, that you really do have to find a balance in it. And often there are days that I have to prioritize certain tasks. So often most of those days are really taking care of my patients, doing their assessments, and if I have time to, do recipe developing and creating social media content, then I need to find a way to kind of fit that in. But because I am so passionate about food and sharing the knowledge of health and wellness, somehow I found a way to kind of sneak it in there, even if it's on weekends where I try to create most of my content and make all of my food and feed all of my family and friends, and that's what it is. Then on weekends, then I would do that. So still trying to figure out that balance. But I think it's a very much so a learning process. I'm still learning through so many different things, still jumping through the hoops of everything. So, hopefully, down the road I can find a solid answer. But for right now, I'm trying to find the balance between everything.
All right, fair enough. You've only just begun.
Of
Um, two more questions are coming to my
course.
mind, Nikita. One is, and this is a very, very cliche question. I'm sure you get asked this, or you will, as you go on, get asked this a lot. The common perception when somebody like me hears of somebody who's a qualified, trained dietitian becoming a baker is that somehow there's a contradiction there. Uh, because the instinctive perception of baking and baked goods is that they're unhealthy.
Right.
So how do you reconcile with that? And is it then therefore the case that everything you bake is healthy, or is it not?
Yeah, if you go through my Instagram page, you will, not find you won't find a complete thread of posts that are like, oh, healthy, healthy, healthy. So as we just talked about, it's really a matter of finding balance. Of course I can create recipes and desserts that have healthier ingredient swaps, but I've always been an advocate of if you want to enjoy a piece of cake, or if you want to enjoy a piece of, a cookie, then, enjoy it, have a balance. If you would like to incorporate physical activity into your life every day, then that's okay for you to, enjoy a piece of cake or two. Because I feel like if you, suppress those feelings of not having that piece of cake or whatever it may be, then further along, you just tend to overindulge in that. So I'm a huge advocate of just trying to find that balance. So all the desserts and stuff, mostly they are, pure sugar, pure flour, and all of that stuff. So I even myself, I won't, I'll try the pieces of cake and whatever it is, but I'll have a balance, of course.
Okay, yeah, that sounds like a fair answer. And the other question that was coming to my mind, Nikita, is that now I understand that again, as a dietitian, you've joined work, and you will naturally grow from there professionally at your hospital or organization as the years go by. But your baking and cooking endeavors, what is the plan with that, or where do you see it going, or where would you like it to go ideally in the coming few years?
Of course. I've always asked myself the same question. Down the road, maybe 10 years from now, I would ideally, one of these days, love to have my own, maybe, cooking show or some sort of podcast, something like that. I have been meaning to open up a YouTube channel, try to get that kickstarted. And nowadays, we're in the world of social media and, all of this technology where thankfully I do have that opportunity to do that. However, I also still, love really the clinical side of medicine and helping patients, and I still want to pursue that. So I'm really thankful that I have, entered this field of dialysis and kidney failure. So again, what we just talked about, that balance, ideally I would love to have that balance in the future as well, with trying to still, of course, pursue my passion for food and nutrition and everything, because I am also a firm believer that everyone has their, career paths of, their day 9 to 5 job. But I also think it's really important to, of course, have your passions and interests and hobbies outside of that, because I feel like that really does motivate us to, pursue every day, our day-to-day tasks.
When you do a collaboration with something like David's Been Here, which you did recently, as of now, what was the idea or the motivation behind that? Was it just to hang out with a very, very engaging and cool YouTuber, or was it a little more strategic in terms of possibly growing your own audience, or was it a number of things?
Definitely a number of things. Of course, it was really awesome to have that experience with him, because he has really been highlighting, people like me who are passionate with food and, Indian Khana Shana. So it was great for me to speak on that. And at the same time, it's helping him as well to, collaborate with someone who's native to Phoenix and show the types of food that India is so greatly known for. The other side of things, we did a second video where he came to our house and we did an Assamese thali completely.
Right.
So that was really awesome, because I was, along with my parents, were able to showcase the beauty of Northeastern food as well. So it's definitely a mixture of everything. I'm really thankful that it has shown exposure to my page. So that just gives, and that's how we collaborated as well, because that only gives me the opportunity to share, my passion for food, and hopefully give someone an idea of what they should cook or what they could cook, or some sort of new recipe that they can try themselves.
That makes perfect sense. Both the episodes, particularly the one at your home, was extremely enjoyable. And I mean, despite the recent, let's say, proliferation of Indian food and Indian cuisine, especially in the Western world,
Yeah.
there's still so little known about the diversity of regional Indian cuisine outside of India. So it was really, really nice to see like a completely dedicated, hardcore Assamese meal, which at least my wife and I loved the episode, and we relished it and felt that we were sort of also grabbing a bite along. Nice.
I
Okay.
appreciate it. Thank you.
And okay, so now tell me, what advice would you have to youngsters who sort of, let's say there is somebody who's figured out that they're very, very interested in photography or dance or something in middle school. What advice would you have for them? I know it's a very generic, general, broad question, but advice in terms of following one's passions essentially is what I'm asking.
Definitely. I think the biggest thing for me, especially when I was in that age of middle school and, in my early teenage years, I just had that curious mind just always constantly rolling. So I think for a younger generation, now that, as we discussed, social media and technology is at the tip of our fingers, and I feel like we should use that to our advantage. So let's say there is someone who wants to pursue dance and that's like one of their biggest hobbies, then I would definitely recommend for them to learn and try to see what else is in there within the dance community, whether that means try to learn different types of forms or the history of dance through YouTube or through Google. I think that's really the biggest thing that helped me as well, because that at least gets the curious mind keep on rolling and rolling, because there's just
Sure.
so much out there for us to learn. Even for me, I have still so much to learn about cooking, and as we discussed, there's so much out there to be learned. So I think, continuing that passion will really help you kind of take, your passion at a younger age and broaden it out to, where we are today.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I come across, and like I told you off camera also, the reason I do these interviews is because people such as yourself serve as very inspiring figures to youngsters who are, flirting with just discovering themselves and their interests, and for XYZ reasons are not always able to really pursue them in the long term. And we now, even in India, live in a very different world from, let's say, even 5 or 10 years ago, where a lot of so-called alternative careers can be very rewarding, secure, lucrative, satisfying careers now.
Of course.
So yeah, great, wonderful, Nikita. It's been absolutely lovely chatting with you. Thank you for making the time for me and for our viewers. All the best with all your endeavors. I'm sure we'll see lots more of you, more success to you, more power to you, and all the very best. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It was wonderful to speak to you on this platform and share a little bit more about me. So I really appreciate you giving me this opportunity to share with your viewers.